Facing same old problems every day makes me want to holler, go away. I need more peace and hope and love. Where do I find it in this crazy old world? I need strategies, strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Every time I listen, Lauren and David share strategies for living, and it makes me aware. I've got strategies for living, strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab. Strategies for living radio.
Oh, you know, we need those strategies, don't we? We need those strategies for living.
Yes, we do.
So are you ready? You ready for your daily dose of radio rehab?
You know what? I'm ready today.
I knew you would be.
I'm pretty ready.
Hey, folks, welcome. Welcome into another edition of Strategies for a Living. I'm Dr. David McMillian. She is psychotherapist, PLPC, Lauren Leon McMillian. You know, it's getting to be that time, Lauren.
Yeah.
People are going to need, the beach is coming up, right?
Absolutely.
And people are going to need that book.
Ooh, the good old beach read.
That book to take to the beach.
Ooh, I think we've got a good idea for that today.
I know we do. I know we do. Can you imagine going on kind of a dream trip into a place that an idyllic, plan and place, and then all of a sudden things go from ideal to horribly bad. Mm. And that's kind of the basis for Joanne Leedom-Ackerman's new novel. It's called The Far Side of the Desert. And I have yet to read anything except just absolute, people are going
raving.
wild. Yeah, they are raving about this book.
I think rightly so, yeah.
And
it's a good story.
It's
with a lot packed in. A lot of themes, a lot of philosophies, a lot of story.
A lot here, yeah. Well, and you would expect that from our life strategist today, Joanne Leedom-Ackerman. She's been a journalist. She was vice president of Penn International. She was a former board member of the international crisis group Human Rights Watch and Save the Children. And she's traveled all over the world. So we are going to get a lot today here on Strategies for Living. I can promise you that.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Folks, thank you for being with us here on Strategies for Living. We appreciate you. Of course, we do this program each and every day for you, and we can do it because we've got a bunch of wonderful sponsors. We really do. The Robinson Film Center and Azalea Cleaners and Pintail Roofing and Learning RX and the Balanced Life Wellness Center and Fertitta's Delicatessen, home of The Godfather, Alligator Italian Sausage, and some pretty good muffies, too. Back in a moment, Joanne Leedom-Ackerman talking about her new book, The Far Side of the Desert, today. Your own strategies. Buckle your seatbelt. Stay with us.
Mind and body, spirits free. Living
And welcome into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian. Let's welcome into the program now our life strategist, Joanne Leedom-Ackerman. She is a novelist, a short story writer, and journalist whose works of fiction include Burning Distance, The Dark Path to the River, and No Marble Angels. Her recent nonfiction book, Pen Journeys, Memoir of Literature on the Line, drew inspiration from her job as vice president of the worldwide writers and human rights organization PEN International. And we're talking about her new book today, her latest novel, Far Side of the Desert. Joanne Ackerman, welcome. Welcome into Strategies for Living.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I look forward.
You're going to have a lot to teach us.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know about this. You know, you made a transition here from journalist to author. Was that a natural evolution, or was it more revolutionary for you?
Well, I was led by my heart and what I wanted to do, but it was not necessarily an easy transition. I began my career as a reporter. I was a reporter for the Christian Science Monitor, and even before
not a shabby little newspaper.
No, it was a wonderful newspaper to work for and a great training ground. And as a writer, I learned so much. Not only could I talk to people from all different walks of life, but I learned to hear dialogue. So dialogue comes very easily to me, and I had the discipline of writing every single day. Yeah, and I got paid for it.
Can't beat that.
It was a great training ground. But I always wanted to get underneath the surface of the stories, to the people that were involved, and to the stories of the heart. And so what I did is, after a number of years of working for the Monitor, I went back. I had a master's in writing, but I went back to graduate school to Brown University, and I started working on fiction. And I found it wasn't just putting pen to paper. You really had to dig. So the first story I sent over to the novelist I was working with was like the beginning of a novel. It was maybe 14 pages. And he said, "What is this? This should be 40, 50 pages." Because, of course, as a journalist, you learn to condense and compress and to outside. Yeah. And I had to learn to write from the inside out. I had to really learn to get under. And I had to learn
so I want to talk about that for a second. So journalists really write from the outside, but you had to flip that and write from the inside out. That's interesting.
Exactly, because a journalist is there to render and tell you what is happening, what's going on, what this person thinks about it, what that person does, but they're outside of the story. Right. But as we all know, many of the stories, even those in politics and all, really connect to what's happening on the inside of a person and why they do what they do and what motivates them and what their relationships are. And that's what interested me. So I've always, as a writer, had a running debate and dialogue in my head between the journalist and the novelist, because the novelist has imagination and is thinking of things, and the journalist says, "But is that true? Do you have the facts? You got it right." So I'm always toggling between the two, and having sometimes to tell the journalist, "Just wait." And I keep a long sheet by my desk called Facts to Check, and I write down the facts to check, but sometimes I let the imagination and the voice of the character run the story, and then I go back and make sure I have the facts correct.
I want to dive in and let you describe what you'd like to about the Far Side of the Desert, because I don't want to give away too much, but it's interesting to me, Joanne, that your previous novel, one of your previous novels, Burning Distance, and then this novel, The Far Side of the Desert, they're novels, and yet I don't think I'm too far off on this. They could be considered, in a way, historical fiction.
Well, that's an interesting observation because, in fact, because of the time it took before they got published, when I was writing them, I often was writing stories before they had even hit the headlines. But it took me so long to get them published and rewritten and up to the standard they needed to be that they now are, in a way, historical fiction.
Yeah.
The novel Burning Distance, somebody described, I like these two descriptions. One was, it's Romeo and Juliet with a backstory of arms trafficking in the Middle East. Or,
Jeez.
or Jane Austen meets John le Carré. I like both of those.
I love it.
And so I've always enjoyed writing a novel where the outer circle is really about the world around it. So in The Far Side of the Desert, that deals with arms trafficking, drugs trafficking, financial manipulation, terrorism. But the inner circle has to do with the family, and the very inner circle has to do with the main characters. So the story in The Far Side of the Desert begins in a place called Santiago de Compostela in Spain, where there's an annual Camino. People of religious persuasion come to do a pilgrimage.
Right.
Well, these two sisters and brother, and they are not Catholic. They are not there to do a pilgrimage, but it's also a wonderful festival. So they're there for the festival.
Right.
They're all three workaholics. The older sister is a recognized broadcaster for a news network out of London.
And that's Samantha, right? That's Sam, right?
That's Sam, Samantha. Okay. Monty, the younger sister, works for the State Department in Cairo.
All right.
And the brother, Cal, is a diplomatic correspondent for The Economist. So they're all working all the time. But they decide to come together for a few days because each of them is at a crossroads in their life. And they come together at this festival. They have spent part of their childhood in Spain. But at the festival, there's a terrorist attack, and one of them gets abducted and disappears. It's just disappeared. Nobody contacts the family. Nobody says where this sibling has gone, what's happened to her.
Right.
Now, the family, diplomatic family, the father's been an ambassador. He's been at NATO. So they have a lot of resources to draw on. The two other siblings are journalists. All try to find their sister, and they cannot find this sister. So the story is really the story of a family coming together, coming to terms with what this kind of terrorism means, and then the story of this sister who has other issues and is really in quite a desperate situation. That's only part of the book. But it really is also looking at the nature of terrorism and how we individually come to terms and find the resilience that's within us that then has to adapt to the situations that are around us. If that's a good summary, if you've read it, so you can tell me if that summary works for you.
I think it's a great summary. But I'm when we interview novelists, I'm always.
Yeah, you don't want to give too much.
Yeah, I don't want to give.
It's important.
It's finding that balance, right, between how much is enough, because we want people. Like I said, I mean, a lot of people are right now making multiple trips to the bookstore and the library because they're trying to find just that right book to take to the ocean or take to the beach, take to the lake, take to wherever they might be going to. Lots of us look forward to our getaways wherever they may be.
Yeah.
And, I just look forward to my front porch swing because that's about where that's about where I take my summer reading, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, people tell me The Far Side of the Desert is a book that they couldn't put down. So that to me is always sort of the sine qua non. I love a book that I just really get immersed in and have to keep reading.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give any more of the story away either, except to say that the final conclusion as a writer surprised me along the way. I didn't see that when we're setting out on this.
I want to ask you about that. I want to ask you about that as an author, as a writer. And I've had a lot of different writers say to us, their characters surprise them as they.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Most novelists tell you that the characters, that's sort of the fun of the process. The characters become alive in your own head and thought. And even though you are the one who developed, created them, they have their own voice. And, in fact, your book is working when they do begin telling you part of the story. So, you may say going this way and your character say, I'm not going there, I'm doing that. And that's wrong. You need to listen to what this dialogue is that's going on in your head.
Yeah.
It's part of the process. I know it sounds mystical, and writers look like they're crazy sometimes because they're full of these characters. I'll tell one quick story. When I was on vacation once with my husband, and I always just love to write on vacation or not. And I said, look, you go home, you have work. I'm going to stay an extra day and just write all day. That's a great pleasure for me. Yeah. So in the evening, I went down to dinner, and I was working and rewriting and writing, and I was, on my own, and they had set another woman beside me at another table I hadn't noticed. And when the coffee came, she said, I see you're alone too. And I look around, I'm not alone. I have all these characters. And I feel a bit alone, but it was very hard to tell her that actually my table was quite full of all these voices.
I love it. I love it. I'm not alone at all. I've got all these
friends,
characters.
Yeah.
I love it.
I got Sam and Cal and Monty and the mother and the father.
You wouldn't believe what they're doing.
Oh yeah, if you only knew. The book is The Far Side of the Desert. Joanne Leedom-Ackerman is the author, and she's our life strategist today. We've got a lot more to learn, a lot more to come today. The Far Side of the Desert. If you're looking for a summer book,
look no farther.
Yeah, you may not have to look very far.
You don't have to look to the far side of the desert.
No, you don't have to go to the far side of the desert. We got it right here. Joanne Leedom-Ackerman, our life strategist today here on Strategies for Living. Much more to come. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Hey, let's talk about the Robinson Film Center. I say it a lot. There's no place like the Robinson.
Absolutely, there is not.
617 Texas Street, downtown Shreveport. You've got so much. You got the movies. You got Abby Singer's Bistro on the second floor of RFC, open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Saturday.
Newly remodeled.
Absolutely. Great menu. RobinsonFilmCenter.org is the way you check it all out. You can go to RobinsonFilmCenter.org at any time and find out what movies are showing. Here's the deal. You want to join the crowd, join the fun, become a member. When you become a member, you become a star. You get discounts on movies, you get concession upgrades, you get bistro deals. RFC, 617 Texas Street in downtown Shreveport. I'll say it again. There's no place like the Robinson.
There is not, and I'm glad we have one right here.
Absolutely. The RobinsonFilmCenter.org.
Reading begins not in the classroom, but in your child's brain. I'm Donisa Walker with LearningRx Shreveport. If your child struggles to read, maybe he or she has trouble focusing or comprehending, LearningRx Shreveport offers a science solution to reading problems, working one-on-one with your child, targeting his or her reading skills. Today, call LearningRx Shreveport. Make an appointment to have your child assessed. I know you want to help your child, so does LearningRx Shreveport.
Facing the same old problems day to day, makes you want a hard get away. Looking for the road that'll get me there, looking for hope and peace to spare, looking for strategies for living radio. Your dose of radio rehab, strategies for living radio.
We got them. We got those strategies. Yeah, we do.
Emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Well, welcome back anyway to Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillian and David McMillian. We're with Joanne Leedom-Ackerman today and her new novel. It is a page-turner. The Far Side of the Desert. I read at night, Joanne, and so you owe me some sleep.
Yeah, and consequently me too.
you owe me some sleep because you get a hold of a book sometimes. I typically read. I use reading at night, like some people I guess use Ambien or whatever.
I do the same thing.
I read until I get sleepy, but then you hit a book like The Far Side of the Desert, and it's like, okay, I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. So I gotta find out what happens next. Now, you've got got a website that you can share that your books and some of your other writings are a part of, right?
I do. It's www.joanne, Joanne, Leedom, Leedom -Ackerman, Ackerman, JoanneLeedom-Ackerman.com. And on the website are all my fiction, nonfiction, as well as blogs and links to the Substack that I publish every month for free, and all the social media links. So the whole package is on the website, and so if anybody's interested, please link there. I also love to talk to people in book clubs and all, and people can find me there and ask me to do a book club either in person if I'm close, or certainly by Zoom.
Very cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And I appreciate the fact that for book club people, I appreciate the fact when book club discussion questions are included, and you've included them in your book here. So I think that's wonderful.
The publisher did that. They did a very nice job. They included book club discussions. They have an audio book. They recorded the book, so that's the way many people are. I in fact love audio. I'm a really good customer. I buy the audio book, the digital book, and the book because I read on all three platforms, and therefore I'm getting to read many more books than sometimes I could otherwise.
Yeah.
And done a good audio book for The Far Side of the Desert as well, and a digital and a hardcover and a paperback. So congratulations to my publisher, Ocean View.
Yeah, there you go. When things begin to, when you're starting and you're saying, okay, I'm ready to write again. Does the idea just go like the idea for The Far Side of the Desert? Did it just come, or did it kind of bubble and did it kind of bubble up over time?
It came incrementally. It's a sort of a false division of writers, but if you go to conferences, they'll ask you, are you a plotter or a pantser? Plotters plot the whole novel. The pantsers write by the seat of their pants. So I'm much more of a pantser. I see pieces of the book. I see the opening. I see the opening scene. I see this. I see the theme. But I don't know the whole arc of the story while I'm writing. But that's the fun of writing. It's a little bit like the way we live our lives. We don't really know what will happen tomorrow. We think, we have a schedule, but we don't really know until we live the next. And writing is that way. So you know enough to go forward, but every day you're discovering as well. And that's why it's fun. That's why I find it's fun. And eventually you know enough of your craft, so you know the requirements of what a good novel should do.
Right.
Yeah. There should be shape. All the pieces should come together. At the end, you should see the whole. There's surprises along the way, sometimes surprises for the author and often for the reader. But those surprises, for me at least, when I hit a surprise of my own, I go, oh my gosh, I didn't see that. But of course, because I realize all the way up to it, I've been building to it. I just haven't necessarily connected the dots to that.
Yeah.
And to me, I love books that do that surprise you, and then you go, of course, I just didn't see that coming. So it's a fun, writing is a fun process. I am somebody who really loves to write.
Well, since you're on this, let me ask, because I know listening to us right now are some people who, a lot of people say, I've got a book in me. I got a couple of books in me, but they don't get them out, right? So what would you say to anybody listening that is, kind of thinking, I've got a book or two in me? What would be your counsel?
My first advice when people say that to me, I say, are you writing every day? Whatever it is, if you're not putting what's in your mind on paper, you're just standing on the side of the tennis court watching the matches. You wouldn't expect to play tennis or basketball or golf or anything by just watching it. You have to get on the field. You have to be in there doing it.
Yeah.
So even though you start writing the book, you need to be writing every day something. You need to be putting your ideas in your head, your descriptions, what you're seeing down on paper and getting used to words, because words are your medium. You know, you wouldn't be a painter and think, oh, I know I'll be a good painter, but I'm just going to go to museums and look at all the beautiful paintings. You have to be doing the work. And then the second thing anybody who wants to write should be doing is reading. You know, read the books that you maybe that you like, and maybe one of the kind you might want to be writing someday. But you know, I used to teach a course at UCLA's Extension called Writing the First Novel. And people would come, you know, wanting to write their first novel. And I remember one course, and these were often adult, you know, they have their graduate degrees even, and said, you know, one man said, I sold my business to take your course. And I went, oh my gosh, please go buy it back. You know, it doesn't happen that fast. Don't disrupt your life. Keep all the securities in your life as you begin this path and this process. But get on the path. Don't just think about it. Get on it, and don't get discouraged if it's not coming out the way you want. Yeah. If you really work at it, you'll begin getting the facility of, you know, ideas to paper. Yeah. So if you want to write, start writing. Start writing.
Yeah. There's two people in this room interviewing you. One of the people writes every day.
Yes.
Well, good.
One of the people.
Yeah.
Well, the other one, he aspires to write every day, but he doesn't quite get there.
You know, my husband once, who you know, he had a book to write, and he was writing it, and he, you know, he'd been a businessman, and he'd been had a PhD in international affairs and everything, and it was hard. And I said, the only thing I can assure you, if you're not in that chair working, it will not get written. You have to be sitting there doing it. You know, you have to walking around thinking about good ideas, you know, doesn't do it. You have to be in the chair doing it. The good news is he got his books written, but you have to be doing it.
Yeah.
What was one of the biggest insights you've learned through the writing process?
Oh gosh, that's a good and big question. You know, it's emphasized to me, and this may sound like an odd answer, but it's emphasized to me to trust life. You know, to trust that there is harmony in the world, in life, and you have the ability to see it. And you have, because there's a good deal of trust to think that you'll be able to go down that path and see that. And, you know, I think that's a big component of what keeps writers, even though sometimes we're known to be sort of, you know, curmudgeons and, you know, cynical and everything. But really, anybody that goes to write a book, there's a big dose of faith in that. And usually that's just faith in life and faith in art and faith in the ability to see.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me. Definitely.
Good. You, I have a feeling, are the writer.
You would have the
you would be correct.
You would be correct there. But my job is, Joanne, I bring her a cup of coffee or a
matcha
usually in the morning. And that's my job, because I close the door and leave her alone for a little while, and it just happens.
Believe me, we need our cheerleaders. There's no doubt about it. And the thing about writing, you know, life doesn't always give you that space. So when I was, you know, when I had little children and was also working, you know, I would get up at 4:30 in the morning and just, you know, go a couple of hours on vacation, or 4:30 to 6:30 or 7, and you know, and in my really young mother days, I would say, you have to give me Saturday, and I would go out and just work for, you know, 8 hours on Saturday. And I'd come home and every drawer and everything was out on the floor. I mean, everything had been taken out. Really taking care of the children, but you know, everything was out. But that was okay. I had my day.
You had your day.
And if I would ever get a little cranky, he would say, just go out and write for a few hours. That would make it all right again. But you know, that's the nature of the art. That's the nature of the art for anybody who's an artist in whatever their medium.
So one of the things about the art of writing novels, I would think, I haven't written a novel, but I admire in my little part of Mecca when I go to the bookstore, you know, I love to go through and look at the titles. And so The Far Side of the Desert, did that, where in the story do you find the title? Does it just go, again, kind of like my previous question, does it just kind of, okay, there it is? Or, like in this case, did you have to search for it some?
Well, this one came Burning Distance was hard, but this one came pretty easily, though originally I had titled it The Backside of the Desert. And that's a biblical reference because Moses goes to the backside of the desert near Mount Horeb.
Oh, sure.
And there's a reference. But the publisher said, I don't like backside. So I said, okay, well, Far Side. Because I had thought of Far Side as well, but Far Side has the cartoon, The Far Side.
Yeah,
so
one of my favorites.
Had a little bit. I know each of them had a minus as well as a plus, but the publisher liked Far Side, so I could settle for Far Side, though it originally was the backside of the desert, and that it did come to me as a biblical reference in the desert, and
I think
when
that's
Moses is on the
interesting.
backside.
Yeah,
because it's very
I think
burning. Yeah, well, as you know, in reading it, there is there's a thread through it.
Yeah.
Deeper wisdom than our own to help.
Absolutely. The book is The Far Side of the Desert. Joanne Leedom-Ackerman is its author and our life strategist today. You can find her at joanneleedom-ackerman.com. But don't go away because she's still here with us on Strategies for Living, and we've got more to learn from her today. So stay where you are and come back. We'll be back in a moment.
From the bayou to your table, we're keeping it alive with flavors from the family, passed down to survive. The Godfather's here with a twist in the tail, alligator Italian sausage, and it sure won't fail. It's the boss of the bayou, a taste you can't refuse. Italian tradition, Cajun infused. Come on the sausage, bold and true. The Padres bringing the bayou to you.
Get the Godfather alligator Italian sausage only at Fertitta's Delicatessen, 1124 Fairfield Avenue in Shreveport. Pick up a muffy while you're there. The Godfather alligator Italian sausage. It's a taste you can't refuse. Sold only at Fertitta's, 1124 Fairfield Avenue in Shreveport. Dealing with stress, pain, feel like you're running out of options? When your life is balanced, wellness is a given. True wellness is holistic. It's about the mind, the body, and the spirit, all in balance. Now, there's a place right here in Shreveport that's all about helping us achieve peak mental, emotional, and physical health. The Balanced Life, 117 Kings Highway, right next door to Strawn's. Come see and feel the difference getting your life in balance can be. Many of your friends and neighbors have already learned the difference less stress and pain mean in their lives. You can book a discovery session right now online, thebalancedlife.us. All you've got to lose is stress, pain, or maybe both. Come see and feel for yourself the real difference balanced wellness makes. The Balanced Life Wellness Center, 117 Kings Highway in Shreveport, next door to Strawn's. Thebalancedlife.us.
Life gets hard along the way. Gotta get through it day by day. We get strategies right here. Strategies for Living Radio. I know some radio rehab. Strategies for Living Radio.
And welcome back into Strategies for Living Radio. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian, with Joanne Leedom-Ackerman today. You're going to take her to the beach or to the lake or wherever you're going to be vacationing. You're going to be busy this summer, Joanne.
I look forward.
You're going a lot of places. And the reason you're going a lot of places is because you've written this wonderful book. Folks, you got to get it. It's called The Far Side of the Desert. If you want a novel that you are not going to want to put down, well, this is it. The Far Side of the Desert. It's out from Ocean View. And you can also find Joanne at joanneleedom.ackerman.com. And I hope you will do that. I want to shift gears for a second here, if we could, because you mentioned this earlier in the first segment that a lot of the importance of this, it's political, it's on the world stage, but then there's a lot of family. There's family dynamics and family drama.
And spiritual and emotional.
And spiritual, yeah. There's a lot in here. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. What I in looking at the books I've written and the books I like, I try to write the kind of book that I like to read. They're really sort of three circles of narrative. And the outer narrative is that narrative that deals with, the world around, whatever the issues are. And because I began as a journalist and I've had the opportunity to live in a number of different places and deal with a number of issues, the outer framework for me has sort of dealt with the times I've been in. So in the far side of the desert, it's dealing, with terrorism, with financial manipulation, with trafficking of arms and people and drugs, and that which is really the criminal element that has become like a membrane over a lot of societies, just inhibiting them and harming the population. So that's interesting to me, and it's more the journalist in me that's interested in that and researches that. But the people are what really drive a novel and are my main interest. So that's the middle circle is the circle of the family. In this case, it's a diplomatic family. They've lived in many places in the world. There's two sisters and a brother. They're two very elderly grandmothers and great-grandmothers who have a voice of wisdom in this book. And that's the middle. And then the very center of the circle are the two sisters. And then the love lives of them, but really the two sisters and their relationship. And if it's done well in a novel, all three of those circles of narrative link and the themes link between them.
Yeah.
And they energize each other. But that's sort of the way that, that I look at it. And I really like novels that can do that well.
Yeah, you kind of explore both the inner and outer landscapes. So I might ask, what parallels do you see between the physical desert and the emotional or spiritual deserts that we sometimes go through?
Yes, that's a very good question. What's happened to the character who finds herself in the, abducted and in the desert is really lifted out of her life. All the things that were the securities of who she was, thought she was, career, family, children, are just gone. And so she's really facing who she is, what her needs are, how she sees life. And when she comes to it, she's sort of in a little bit of a cynical place, a bit distant from people, including her husband and her sister and all. And this takes her into her whole, really a journey of her own. And the other sister is just a professional working hard, and her job just absorbs her. And she's sort of, put off a lot of relationships because she's so driven with her own ambitions. And losing her sister just takes all that away because this is so important to her, and she just puts everything aside to find it. And the brother is sort of a glue between them. So it is sort of an emotional and a spiritual journey for all three of those. And it's also looking at how and where resilience lies in characters. And by implication, I hope, where our resilience is as a society. What is it that holds together when there's an attack, and where does resilience come from? So those are the themes that bounce back and forth. I hope in a very natural way, I don't have a message to preach at all, but through the stories and the struggles of the characters.
Well, you're saying you don't have a message to preach, and yet I think anybody, it's a great story in and of itself, but then anybody going through a transition, or anybody going through, I don't know, their own personal desert, their own personal wilderness, if you will. And I know,
And we go through cycles of those through our lives.
Yeah. I think this book could speak to them. Yeah.
Well, you know, the genesis, people often ask me where it began, and that's hard to entirely identify, but I've sort of landed on this answer because it is a rational answer, and it was certainly part of the thinking. When I was involved with PEN International, which works on behalf of writers all over the world, with
Right.
in over 100, particularly writers who find themselves, imprisoned or at risk, or even killed because of the lack of freedom of expression. Anyway, I was at a big congress for PEN International in Santiago de Compostela, which is where the book opens. And I had just been elected by the writers to head the international human rights work of PEN. And at that Congress, for the first and only time we had to go through metal detectors because we had a very high security visitor.
Right.
And it was Salman Rushdie. And it was during the time the fatwa was very active on him, and he had made very few public appearances.
Yeah.
And because of the position I'd been elected to, I was one of a small group that had dinner with Salman.
Wow.
And I was actually sitting beside him, sharing dessert. And I remember thinking, what must it be like to suddenly have your life just taken from you, just to be lifted out of your life? And that was the beginning question. I didn't start writing the book then. But the opening of Far Side of the Desert is in Santiago de Compostela, in that setting. And that's sort of the theme of what is real, what holds, and how do we find who we are that no one in no circumstance can take from us. We have to, if we can find that, then there's huge security in that, that nobody can take,
Yeah.
that. And that's the central question of the book.
And I think a central question,
For all of us.
a great question
Yeah.
for all of us to
Yes.
contemplate, huh?
Where are we rooted?
Yeah. Especially in especially in these times that we
man.
live in today,
Yeah.
Because
we sometimes think it's politics makes it what it is, or other people make it, or a family makes it, or somebody else, but ultimately nobody can take from you, the who you are.
well
And
said.
when you realize that your imagination, your ability to love, your ability to pray, those are all deep in you, and you've got to sort of know that and come to terms with that.
Well said. The Far Side of the Desert. Joanne Leedom-Ackerman just earned her stripes with that quote as a life strategist. We'll be back. More strategies for living here. You're going to see the difference. When you go to Azalea Cleaners, you'll hear about it too. Azalea Cleaners has been fine dry cleaning since 1958, plus laundry, alterations and repairs, comforters, wedding gown cleaning and restoration. You'll hear about it from your friends because they'll see it too. They'll notice the Azalea difference. Azalea is convenient. 732 Azalea Drive, 9220 Ellerby Road, and 9227 Mansfield Road. Plus, the front door of your home or business with Azalea's delivery on demand. Just text SETUP to 249-8283, and Azalea will pick up your clothes and deliver them back clean and fresh to you. You can't get closer than that. That's the Azalea difference. You'll notice it right away. Others will too. The Azalea difference. Fine dry cleaning since 1958. Text SETUP to 249-8283 and get the Azalea difference. AzaleaCleaners.com.
Hi, this is Jay Merle for Pintail Roofing. Let's talk about quality. When you hire Pintail to build your roof, here's what you can expect. Quality and quality control are the most important concerns for us at Pintail, and you need to know that Pintail stands tall with swift and professional performance on any warranty call. This is our most important policy. And remember, we're your neighbors. We'll be here for you for the long haul. Our family's lived here for over 100 years, and we aren't going anywhere. On the commercial side of Pintail's business, our fluid-applied roofing solutions can save thousands of dollars over conventional commercial roofing options. Call Pintail at 226-ROOF for a free inspection of your home or commercial building. That's 226-7663. Pintail Roofing. What's the condition of your roof?
And welcome back into Strategies for Living Radio. Lauren Leon McMillian, David McMillian, with the author of The Far Side of the Desert, Joanne Leedom-Ackerman. You can find that book, and I hope you will, out from Ocean View, and you might be looking for a book to take to the beach or the lake or wherever you might be going.
We got you covered.
This is it. Far Side of the Desert. Joanne, what do you want to we've talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about the novel itself. We've talked about the writing process. We've covered a lot of great. We've worked you hard as a life strategist. You've earned your stripes. What do you want people to take away from our conversation today and your work?
Well, in the lighthearted note, I'd like them to take away the book.
Yeah.
And get the book, which if it's not in your bookstores can be ordered online almost anywhere. I hope it can take away a relationship that, they enjoy the work and get in touch with me. That's good. In terms of life strategies, I think those who, want to be writers, just start writing. We need ideas. We need everybody's thoughts, but first of all, we need ourselves to be able to sit and think and come to terms with our own thoughts. And so writing is a wonderful way to do it. And I hope the idea of resilience has come out here, because ultimately we need to be our own agents and see that nobody else has agency over who we are, that we are. We need to come to terms with that, with a lot of support from the community around us, from our family. And the core, I think, in the book, there's one quote, the very elderly grandmother and great-grandmother at the very end. And this was a gift to me. They sort of told me this line. They say, in the long run, it's all about how well you've loved. The rest is just paperwork.
I love it.
And I
love
that.
I love it.
I love that line. The one grandmother's like 94 and the great grandmother's 104. And
I love it. I love it.
And you talked about the characters talking to you. Well, they talked to me, and that's what they said. And I went, oh wow.
Joanne, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your work, and thank you for being a great life strategist.
Thank you so much.
Folks, thank you for joining us. We appreciate our sponsors, the Robinson Film Center, and Azalea Cleaners, and Pintail Roofing, and Learning RX, the Balanced Life Wellness Center, and Fertitta's Delicatessen. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call to make, who would you call? What would you say? And why are you waiting?